What if the flame that tempered your blade consumed the boy you buried beneath the battlefield's ash? Feel the searing sting of sun-scorched sand against your soles, not mere grit but the ghost of glory's ground to dust. The thunderous tramp of 10,000 boots sinking with your own frantic heartbeat, the bitter tang of bile-laced resolve mingling with the iron reek of impending rain on rusted ranks, as if your lungs, laboring under the weight of a war-worn cuirass, could inhale the inexorability of a horizon hemmed by helmed hordes. In the anvil of ambition, where we all hammer home our heritages against history's unyielding unction, echoing Hannibal's elephants trampling Teutoburg's terror, or your own fevered forays into fields of forgotten fights. What if Ascension's arc arched not toward apotheosis, but the aching awareness of the ashes it amasses? Episode 3 of Kingdom Season 6, aired on October 19, 2025, fans these furious forges at the fiery fulcrum of the Western Jiao invasion, succeeding Episode 2's diplomatic detonations where Qin's quorums quarreled over quotas, the coalition's clarion call now cresting toward carnage. It's a harrowing hymn of hierarchy and havoc, intriguing in its inexhaustible ignition, the distant drumbeat of deploying divisions, the glint of grudges gleaming in generals' gazes, yet shrouding the scorched sacraments that scar the saga. You've shouldered such shadows in your soul's skirmishes, haven't you? The skyline scarred by specters of what wars win? The episode doesn't unleash the unleashing. It undergirds it, the ether electric with the embers of escalations that etch like etches in your epidermis. What yields when the yoke of command cracks? The conch calls, your core constricts. Charge or let the latent lament lacerate your leisure. From the fractious firmament of Episode 2, where Shohikan's sovereign summons solidified the syndicate of Osan, Kenki, and Yotanhua, their disparate doctrines distilled into a daunting directive against Zhao's western ward, this third thrust transitions into tactical tempests and territorial tugs, tethering the tumult to the threshold of the Gu grapple. The Grand Army's galvanization in Xianyang erupts into earnest engagements, frontline phalanxes, Fei Xian forces fervent forays, Gaku Ka's guileful gambits, Gyoku Ho's granite grit, grappling with Zhao's zealous zealots under Li Mu's looming lash, Shun Suiju's sage counsel courses through the currents, while Riboku's resonant retorts rally the rivals, the air abuzz with the algebra of assault. It's the prelude to Plataea's pivotal press, recast in the river Luo's roiling reaches, where every emplacement evokes the emplacements we erect in our own entanglements. Sense the sodden soil sucking at your stirrups as the squadrons surge, the subtle salute of standards snapping like synapses firing. Does this onslaught orchestrate oblivion, or orchestrate an odyssey anew? The episode exhales on an exigent edge, a half-hewn horizon hankering for harvest, hauling you headlong like a half-halted host. The plot propels with phalanx-like precision, pressing the panorama from parley to paroxysm, each platoon a pivotal prod in the procession toward Qin's quixotic quintessence. Revelations resound in the ranks. The coalition's Sasho edict to emblematic elevation, etching elite echelons amid the exigencies. Li Mu's marshalling a mirror of meticulous malice, San's seismic spasms yet sowing stratagems that stratify the strife. Twists temper the tempo, the counselor's cryptic caveats, a quiet quake quelling the quick, capped by a cliffhanger's cruel cleave, a commander's clandestine charge, a cataract of contingencies catapulting the calculus into cataclysm, echoing the manga's inexorable inflection. Pacing, a phalanx's phlegmatic phalanx. Steadfast in its stratagems, it balances the bivouacs brooding with the brink's brisk, dramatic equipoise edging toward eruption, though the prelude's persistence pricks the pulse, those cloudy aspects clouding cadres like contrails over the cantonments. Why the Sasho summons swift sanction San's sweeping scrutiny, and Shun Suiju's shadowy stratagems, their sway surging San's salient showcase? Legions of loyalists litigate in layers. Does the directive's dispatch dilute the deliberation, or deepen the dialectic? The manga's chapters 498 to 501, The Decisive Battle of Kenkoku Pass, Part 2. The sinew of this segment in the Coalition Invasion arc, chapters 496 to 644, illuminates with inexhaustible insight. The Sasho stems from Sai's strategic surplus, Shin's squad's unheralded HEW, tabulated in tactical transcripts truncated for tempo's triumph, a thread tracing to Hara Yasuhisa's homage to Shurgia's silent ascents, where accolades accrue in arrears. Shun Suiju's suggestions? No narrative nebula. Chapter 499, The Overwhelming Pressure of the Coalition Army, parses them as prelude to provocation, his whispers a whetstone for Western wards, the deferral a deliberate dovetail to diplomatic depths, detonating in the deluge, Chapter 502, as scorched earth scorches. This animated aegis, adapting 498 to 501 with allegiance amplified by alacrity, condensing confabulations for conquest's cadence, dispels the detritus. No obscurity, but orchestrated oracle, ambiguities and allure amplifying the arc's ambitious and vil, characters carve colossi in the chronicle, their cores cracked under conquest's colossus. Shin, that spearhead of stubborn sovereignty, excavates his existential exile, wounds of the war orphan's want, his glaive a girdle for the ghost he guards, motivations a maelstrom of messianic might masked as mateship, choices like contesting the command's caprice consistent yet convulsing, transformative in their tenacious tenacity, surprising as Leonidas' last stand lingering in laconic loyalty. O Han, the obsidian offspring, unveils ulcers and unyielding ukases, lineage's laceration a lancet against laxity, his growth glimmers in grudging grants. Raboku, the rival's riddle, resonates with restrained resolve, dialogue dense with dialectical depth, consistent, like the long wall's loom, surprising, as a parley parrying the pike. Thematically, the episode doesn't declaim, it drips like dragon's ichor, profound pigments percolating through prisms of potency and perfidy. Power parades in the phalanx's perch, coalitions compact a colossus or chink, manifesting in Shin's unbowed bid, echoing Thucydides' Peloponnesian perils, principalities procured by pragmatism's prick, querying if hegemony hollows or hallows the helmed heart. Morality meanders the muster, is incursion imperative or impiety? Sacrifice scorches in the sovereign's silent sighs, survival in the squad's steadfast stand, hope a hesitant horizon against despair's dust-choked dirge. These aren't axioms, they're essayed in Ohan's averted assaults, Raboku's resonant retorts, philosophical phantoms that probe. Does the diadem demand dissolution, or dare destiny defy the decree? World-building welds wonders in the Warrens, Jiao's zenithal zeal, fortress fallacies, Li Mu's lore-laden legions, enrich the expanse with ethnographic edges, cultural codes of the warring states' warring ways complicating coalitions, where edicts etch empires. No encumbrance. It enchants, eclipsing the epical with epic enigmas. Dialogue? A dirk in the diplomat's diplomatic, sharp as a scimitar's slice, poetic in pauses pulsing with portent, impactful yet occasionally cliched in its clarion calls. Lines like Shun Suiju's subtle shadows strategize where suns surrender foreshadowing fractures, resonate post-credits like the lingering lament of a lost legion, reminiscent of Clausewitz's cogent clauses amid the melee. You've bartered such barbs at boardroom battlements or bedside broils, haven't you? Words wielding the weight of worlds unwon? The script stings strategically, a subtle sorcery summoning scrutiny long after the scroll seals, art direction adorns with archaic allure, a chiaroscuro of crimson cloaks and ochre outcrops symbolizing the schism of sovereign and soil, Shin's silhouette a sanguine stain against the Senate's sepia, lighting lacerating the locale in luminous lashes that evoke the soul's sly severance, shadows sprawling like suspicions unspoken, movement a minuet of muster in marching masses, stillness a stilled scream in the sanctum stare, fluidity favors the fray, phalanx formations in fluid ferocity, yet repose rules in regal reveries, nods to the nocturnal nuances of Hokusai's havoc, where beauty isn't bomb but blade, the vivid voids voicing valor's veiled valor, colors congealing like congealed conquests, direction and cinematography connive with cunning craft, sweeping surveys of sprawling strongholds, composing coalitions that cradle crisis in their crooks, editing's erratic ebbs a mirror to masked minds, whip whirls in war, room wrangles, languid lingers on lineage-laced laments, amplifying Shin's anguished agency like Zhang Yimou's hero icy hues, but burnished with brutality. It magnifies the miasma, every angle and accusation annealed. The OST, an oracle of antiquity, orchestral omens underscoring the unseen, brooding taiko throbs thundering betrayals, a spectral shamisen summoning suspense into the sanctum's sigh, motifs of muffled marches haunting the hush of half-healed hurts, crescendos crashing in chimeric clashes like ancient anthems, Fukuyama's fiery forges, a tremor that turns ticks into tempests, souls shadowed in sound. This episode etches empires like acid on adamant, a visceral vice in your viscera that vice grips your veiled vendettas, scars from the specter of severed securities mirroring your masked malaises, wonders wedded in the whimsical weld of warring wills that wonder at worth's weird weights. I personally was struck by that council's cascade, a moment of marrow-melting mercy that morphed malice into a meditation on mending, leaving me lingered in the limbo of lit lanterns. The zenith? A zenith of zeniths, destinies dueling in a din of devotion, a fulcrum where feints fracture and fealty forms, appending the undercurrents for all. It reverberates with our resentments recoiled at revelation rites, the philosophical phantom. If even a shadowed summons can summon sovereignty, what summoned scars in your script plead for severance? You've braced against such breakthroughs at betrayal's brink or beds unbidden, Haven't you, the grudge's grip loosening like dusk from the day? Despair drips in the dirge of the departed, but hope hardens in the handoff. A hue in the haze, humming like the hum of a half-healed hollow, through reverse reading's refracted rune. The episode's flaws flourish as facets of finesse. Pacing precipitates perilously, revelations rushing like a rogue arrow. Yet it's no haste but homage to the manga's lithe leaps, distilling daftness for dramatic delight akin to Vinland Saga's brooding builds. Complexity confounds in the conundrum of concealed conjurings. Bureaucratic beats too brisk, but opacity? Orchestrated omen. Thematic tendrils that tease the tension of tentative truths, per chapter 498's veiled vignettes. I think the prelude's polity might mire the melee for some, a chill that chafes like an unyielding gorget. Though reframed, it ritualizes the epic's raw reclamation, a nod to the manga's unapologetic anthems of ascent. Appreciation affirms the allure, the acuity of arcs affirmed, the affability of arcane aired, outweighing quibbles like the animation's occasional asperity in assemblies, a charm chiseled from chiaroscuro's chaos. Balanced? Brilliantly, the beam bending toward brilliance. Kingdom Season 6 Episode 3 excels in its etched enigmas. Epic exaltation etched from eternal engagements, characters contoured with compassionate cunning, a universe unfurled in facets both fierce and fraught. Weaknesses? Whispers of whirlwind whimsy and wiry warmth, but they wispy away in the wake of wit. Artistically, it animates ambition's ardor. Narratively, it nurtures the nerve of the nascent narrative. Success? Splendidly, a summons for the sidelined, a shadow for the sovereignty-starved soul. Yet as the end credits curl like coiling chords in the cavern's confetti, one query quivers in the quiet. If even a veiled vocation can veil victory, what veiled valor in your vigil yearns to vanquish the void? The dagger dangles, dripping with destinies. The episode endures, not as escapism but evisceration, the deliberate dirk in your day's design. Heed the hum of the half-struck, own the hidden, or forever fathom the fractures you forswore. What if the throne you claw toward isn't built on gold or glory, but on the pulverized bones of the betrayed? The acrid bite of gunpowder-laced smoke choking your throat, the slick warmth of spilled life seeping between your greaves, the relentless thunder of chariot wheels grinding hope into the dust-choked plain, as a general's gaze, steel-hard and sorrow-veiled, weighs the cost of one gate against a kingdom's crumbling dawn. Hear the guttural war cries echoing like the laments of Thermopylae's fallen Spartans, feel the phantom tremor of a spear's haft splintering in your grip, taste the copper tang of resolve mingled with regret, as a young soldier whispers to the wind, is victory the chain that binds us, or the blade that frees the forgotten? On October 26, 2025, as Tokyo's lanterns flickered against the deepening autumn night like distant signal fires, Kingdom Season 6 Episode 4, Jiao's National Gate, unleashed its barrage into the heart of the Western Jiao invasion arc, a relentless thrust following the coalition's shadowed maneuvers in prior episodes, where feints and fords set the stage for this inexorable clash. It's a colossus in miniature, intriguing in its chessboard calculus of carnage, yet miserly with its mercies, leaving me hollowed out and hungering, like standing amid the aftermath of Gettysburg's haze, the air heavy with the ghosts of gambits unresolved. Have you ever bartered your brother's blood for a horizon's hazy promise, only to question if the map was ever yours to redraw? The episode doesn't decree, it dispatches the dispatch, suspense a siege engine creaking against your ribs, curiosity the catapult that hurls you toward the breach. What gates would you storm for a fleeting flag, and what shadows stir in the rubble? From the precarious perches of Episode 3's reconnaissance ruses, where Qin's vanguard veiled their venomous vectors amid Zhao's vigilant scouts, this chapter catapults the coalition into collision's crucible, as Shun Suiju's shadowed missive ignites Li Mu's labyrinthine countermeasures, while Raboku's rivals reckon with the revelation of Retsubi's ruinous role. Supplies secured at Kinnan become the sinew for a surge toward the Zhao bastion, generals' grievances grinding against grand designs in council chambers that reek of ink and intrigue, the arc's inexorable invasion inching from infiltration to inferno. Transitioning with tactical tenacity, it hurtles toward the arc's apex of attrition, sans the solace of prior lulls to leaven the load. Envision yourself there, boots mired in the mud-slick march, the horizon haloed by torchlight as war drums pulse like a leviathan's heartbeat, much like the charged eve of Agincourt, where longbows loomed and lords lingered in doubts dim. Does the gate yield to the yoke, or does defiance dam the deluge? The précis pairs to the precipice, a strategist's snare sprung, a sovereign's secret spilled, a symphony of steel sung in silhouette. It's the overture to Sun Tzu's shadowed stratagems, incisive incisions without the full evisceration, not the chronicle's carnage complete, but its clarion call, that visceral vice clenching your chest, compelling you to charge the chronicle, to calibrate if conquest crowns or curses. Not the saga's sinews, but its savage sigh, the unrelenting urge to unearth, envisioning if the National Gate Guard's glory glory or graves, this installment impels with the inexorable inertia of an avalanche, methodical in its mounting momentum, then cataclysmic in cascades of conflict, propelling the invasion from veiled vanguard to visceral vanguard, crystallizing Qin's clandestine calculus while catalyzing Jiao's countervailing cunning through Shun Sui Ju's seismic bulletin. Revelations rend the veil. The coalition's covert crusade against Retsubi as supply-strangling linchpin, Li Mu's prescient pivot unmasked in murmurs that menace the marauders, no seismic shocks but a subtle subversion, the gate's garrison's grit glinting as potential pivot that peaks in a cliffhanger clash, catapults cocked and cohorts colliding under crepuscular clouds, pacing Parley's precision with pulse, distilling manga's chapters 500 to 503 into 24 minutes of martial montage, deliberate deliberations in dawn's dim dissolve into dusk's desperate dash, equilibrating exposition's exhale with engagement's eruption to elude epic's ennui, the cloudy aspects that cloud communal caucuses, those spectral snags like Shun Sui Ju's source secrets or the gate's guarded geometry. Is the scout's slight sovereign sabotage or serendipity's shadow? Does Retsubi's rampart riddle resolve in ruse or rampage, provoke perennial parsing? The manga, serialized in weekly Young Jump since 2006 by Yasuhisa Hara, with 78 volumes by 2025, the Western Jiao invasion arc spanning chapters 490-550+, elucidates these enigmas with encyclopedic exactitude. Shun Sui Ju's dispatch, etched in chapter 501's encrypted epistle, stems from infiltrated itineraries, Qin's feigned fords masking the Retsubi thrust, a tactical trompe-l'oeil echoing historical feints like Hannibal's Alpine ascent. His report not ruse but reconnaissance refined, contextualizing the animation's abbreviated allusions as accelerators to antagonism. The gate's geometry, chapter 502's cartographic clarion, Retsubi's triple-tiered terracing, a Jiao bulwark blending natural narrows with nacreous nacelles, complicates conquest per the manga's military minutiae, where Li Mu's turtle shell topography, inspired by Zhao's real 3rd century fortifications, thwarts the thrust, the episode's elision a deliberate distillation for dramatic drive. Fans fret the fidelity. Reddit threads decry the scout's swiftness as skipped sleuthing. Yet this adaptation, by Pierrot, honors the source's sprawl by streamlining stratagems, transmuting murk from misprision to martial mystery, ambiguities as archer's arrows, loose to lure the legions deeper. What if the episode's haze is the haze of war, wetting your wits for the wiki's wider weave? Shin Itu evolves as emblem of the everyman's epic, his fractures from fallen comrades, forged in the forges of Feuchting's fall akin to the foot soldiers' forgotten elegies in All Quiet on the Western Front, propel a motivation of muted mastery, his maneuvers a consistent crucible of command that surprises in stoic solidarity, transformative in turning trepidation to tenacious thrust amid the tumult. O-San, the enigmatic ensign, unveils an underbelly of unyielding utilitarianism, wounds of wilderness wanderings fueling fealty to the fray, choices like counsel contretemps consistent in cryptic candor, growth glimpsed in grudging genuflections to the grander gambit. Li Mu, Zhao's shadowed savant, layers labyrinthine loyalty with latent lament, his directives a motivation masked as mandate, surprising in subtle sympathies that humanize the hawk. Transformative, transcendentally, like Alexander's aides assaying the Indus ire, dialogue drifts from declarative decrees to doubt-dappled deliberations, ascension arched in every ashen aftermath. Reader, when have your scars schooled you in the stratagems of survival, turning pawn to paladin? The episode interrogates with infantryman's incision. What dominion endures when dynasties dissolve in dust, power's predatory partitions, or morality's meticulous muster? Sacrifice surges in the soldier's silent suffrage, a sovereign's shadow for the state's salvation, struggles manifesting hope's hammered helm against despair's dulled dirk, evoking Machiavelli's martial maxims, where fortuna favors the fortitudinous amid fortuna's fickle forge. Morality modulates in the marshal's machinations, choices like O-Sen's oblique oaths a survival stratagem in sovereign snake pits, vivisecting power's peril in predestined pantomimes. Hope versus despair, the gate's grim guardians a grail, exhaling how resolve refutes ruin. It pierces the panoply. In your own embattled epics, have you sacrificed sovereignty for the siege's siren song, morality for the meridian's merciless march? The warring states weave widens with war-weary warp, Retsubi's ramparts a rubric of resilience. New lore in Zhao's zonal zeniths and Qin quartermaster quirks complicating campaigns with cartographic caveats, enriching the epic without entanglement, akin to Herodotus histograms hewing history from the hearth. The script sallies with strategist sting, sharp sallies splintering silences, poetic in profane profundity. Shins we press on a cliché consecrated as clarion, lines lumbered with foreshadows filigree that reverberate like ricochets in a redoubt. Impactful, incisively, each utterance an undercurrent carving canyons. Envision it echoed in the encampment's emberglow, his vow veiling the vanguard. Would you breach the breach if it bade your blood? The writing wields not with waste but with whetstone, honing the haze and the half-heard. The credits curtain a clarion craving the charge, art direction dons the dust of antiquity. The plain a palette of ochres and sanguine splatters, colors connoting conquest's cruel caress, lighting lacerating lines in lurid limbs that shadow the siege's savagery. Fluidity flares in frenzied formations, symbolism in stasis. Poised phalanxes versus pulverizing pursuits, forging impact where beauty bespeaks brutality. Not gilded gloss, but grim grail, like Delacroix's barricades birthing bedlam from the banal. Direction deploys the dolly as death's dispatch, overhead oracles dwarfing the depleted in divine disdain. Compositions constricting cohorts in chaotic clusters to amplify the anvil's agony. Crescendos carve, the percussion's predatory pulse in the press, a requiem rising, while silence slays. The post-parley pause, a vacuum voicing the void louder than the volley. What dirge does the dust drone in defeat's dim? Jun Fukuyama's shin simmers with subdued storm, timbre a taut tremor, intensity incarnating the infantryman's ignition, each exhortation etching the soul's steadfast surge. Atsushi Miki's O-Sun throbs with throttled thunder, his timbre a veiled venom embodying the virtuoso's veiled volition. The ensemble elevates the elegy, voices the vital vein in the vanguard that it etched into me like shrapnel from a shattered shield. A thunderclap of triumphant terror from the tides turning, scars from the strategist's shadowed sacrifices sparking wonder in the warrior's waning wills. I felt the fray, a destiny's discord in that gate's grim grapple, a fulcrum flinging from feint to felony, trajectories torn in the torrent's tumult. Moments mark, the missive's mordant murmur, wonder wedded in widened war cries, the council's covert cleave, a scar of shattered stratagems. It conjures Confucian quandaries. Have you, in ambition's arena, essayed the anvil of alliance? Despaired at the drag of dominion on the dog's dinner of duty? Here, hope hews not as handout, but hammered. What if your gates guard ghosts, groaning for the grail? The episode endures, a philosophical phantom in the palisade, intrigue interlacing like invisible ink. Does that disquiet draw you yet? The gate's grim gambit to garrison your gaze? Yet invert the indictment on imperfections, and they illuminate intent. Pacing's precipitate plunge not precipitance, but prelude, mirroring manga's masked maneuvers, opacity and omens a stylistic shroud soliciting scrutiny, akin to Tolstoy's War and Peace delving through the din complexity's crux. Calculated, catalyzing the charge. Appreciation asserts, critique carves the contours. I anticipate the scout's swiftness might mar the meander, a touch too telescoped, but it blunts no blade. The barrage unbloodied, Kingdom Season 6 episode for excels in its edged elegy. Premise a paradox of phalanxes and ploys, characters carved with covert cuts, artistry an assassin of apathy. It attains its aspirations, narratively, in knifing through the kingdom's knot, artistically, in evoking the exquisite edge of the eclipsed. Weaknesses, whispers of world weariness in the welcome, awaiting wedded widths. But contemplate this, conqueror. What if eluding its edge leaves your own saga sheathed, shadows swallowing the summons unspoken? The episode isn't intermission, it's incitement, the gate gaping at your gatto. Storm it, let Retsubi's rumble become the rupture in your own rampart of the routine.